What's the stupidest reason you got in trouble in school? For fighting. The school arsehole sucker punched me and I didn't retaliate. It was even caught on tape. The zero tolerance policy is one of the stupidest things ever. I tripped on a loose tile and bumped into a teacher, causing her to spill her coffee on herself. I apologized and showed her the tile. She went on for months about how I did it on purpose. Even got the principal and my folks involved. For the rest of the year she told me I couldn't come back to her class unless I apologized for doing it on purpose. Never went back to her class. Though I initially apologized for the incident, I never once apologized for doing it on purpose. Duck you Mrs. Helm. Correcting a teacher's spelling of congratulations. It was a substitute, and it was English literature. For using my asthma medication in class. I was told to keep my inhaler in the office, and to use it in there only. I was told it was distracting. Know what else is distracting? The sounds of someone gasping for air and having to be removed from class. For hugging a crying classmate in the hall, and that one time I typed the word boobies on the calculator in math class. Grad school, as in, full-grown adult. One of my patients was a chill guy. We had one of those relaxed relationships. He would fist bump me after treatment was completed. The Dean of Academic Affairs did not like that. Got a 45-minute lecture on doctor-patient relationship, and how dare I violate that trust with a fist bump. In 1993 the Flaming Lips song She Don't Use Jelly came out. I was in 3rd grade and I really liked that song, and started signing it with my friends during a double-handed jump roping session. She don't use Geely or any of Theory. She uses the line. Boom. Written up. 3-day suspension for saying sexually suggestive things. I had no idea that was meant sexually. Worse even, no one would explain why that song was sexually suggestive. It was very confusing. Someone made a paper airplane out of scrap paper that had been binned. My name was written on the sheet they used. I got sent out the room and handed a punishment exercise. Spelling test in 7th grade. We wrote down the words as the teacher shouted them out. One of the words was peace. The kid next to me asks, which one? There's 2 different words. Peace peace. The teacher said, the one on the list you were supposed to study. That's bullet. I whispered. Peace as in piece of pie. She made us both rip up our tests for cheating. I apparently sighed loudly when a TA who knew she wasn't very popular walked in the room. I was talking to a friend the opposite side of my table. Someone once poked a wasp nest in the school forest, and the whole swarm came out upon the school. The entire school sat attention for an hour. Understandable if you don't know who did it, but that's not the problem. We were sitting detention because the principal's son got stung. As it eventually turned out, it was actually his fault the swarm came down on us. I have cursed his name since the day I found out. For saying my school picture sucked. I had no idea sucked was considered a bad word until I was put in detention for it. Chasing someone with a paperclip and saying I am a vampire was elementary. I got in trouble for cheating on one of my math exams. The teacher found a piece of paper in my pencil case. I got sent to the principal's office. When the principal asked me about what I wanted to say in my defense, I simply told him to take a look at the note. It turned out to be a shopping list. I was allowed to retake the exam the following week. I got ICE, in-school suspension, basically detention during school hours, for being in a food fight even though I wasn't. They said I was a part of it because I dropped some crumbs from my cupcake onto the floor. In middle school, the bell to send us home didn't go off on time. We were all standing by the door waiting to leave when all the other classrooms started leaving to go home. The hallways were filled and teachers were telling people goodbye, so my classroom started to leave too. I was one of the first ones out, but apparently our teacher caught the end half of the class and made them sit down and tell them everyone who walked out the door because I dismiss you, not the bell. So all of us who left like the rest of the school got detention. I was sent to the principal in 6th grade for arguing with my teacher when she insisted that Hitler was a communist. The principal literally did a facepalm, but then pulled himself together and lectured me on being more respectful. First, I did many things to get in trouble legitimately. I went undiagnosed with ADHD inattentive type for a long time. Because I would laser focus on schoolwork and get done quickly. Then get bored and disrupt everyone else. The secretaries in my elementary school office knew me on sight when I went back to visit in high school. But there were a couple times that were questionable. Clapping. In 4th grade I learned you can clap louder by having the fingers on one hand go into the palm of the other. I was part of a mini concert for our extremely talented string students, oh yeah, hot cross buns, and I was kicked out and sent to the office because I clapped along with everyone else. But a teacher felt I was being disruptive, abusing my newfound power. It was decades ago, so I really can't say if I was being a jerk or not. Sneezing. I sneezed several times, and like a duck quacking. I got it from my grandfather who did the same. If those things are hereditary, I can try to hold it in, but then it looks like I'm having a seizure. Our middle school science teacher immediately tried to give me ice when I sneezed for the first time, and it took the whole class vouching for me before she relented. After that, people would just pause for me to finish, and I'd apologize. I was drinking tea and my teacher yelled at me to stay home if I was sick, which I wasn't it. Dude sucker punched me in gym class. I never even got a chance to defend myself or fight back before the teacher stepped in. I got suspended for fighting. I threw a closed pen to my friend who was like 3 feet away from me, and the teacher freaked out. He made a big deal out of it in front of the whole class for a solid 5 minutes, and then emailed my parents. Luckily my mom was able to see my side of things and she said, "Doesn't that teacher have better thing to do than email me about my child throwing pens?" We still laugh about it from time to time. I yawned. That earned me 30 minutes of you never listened to the lesson properly. I didn't tie my shoes the way the PE instructor wanted me to. In 11th grade, sat in the dean's office for an hour before they called my mom, whose response I still remember. "You're calling me during my work day to ask my son to tie his shoes in a way that a PE teacher feels suitable? Are you ducking kidding me?" I played AAA hockey at the time along with varsity lacrosse. PE class was the least of my worries, let alone how my shoes were tied. Safe to say I didn't have to retie my shoes. We had a substitute and everyone was playing around when we were supposed to do work. The sub didn't care. However, my friend Preston decides to whip his D out literally in class and he got expelled. I got in trouble by my football coach assistant principal because I stood there and laughed. I dropped my phone down an entire flight of stairs once. I took it out of my pocket. It slipped. I tried to catch it with my hand, but I just ended up hitting it forwards and upwards. It landed at the bottom of the stairs flat on the screen. It was completely broken except for one thing. It could still receive phone calls. So next period my classmates kept calling me on repeat and I could do nothing about it because my phone could not silence or ignore the call. Naturally, my teacher blamed me and I was sent to the principal's office, who told me never to do it again and that she'd be keeping my phone the rest of the day. I seriously don't think she realized it was ducking shattered even when she was holding it. Failed an in-class project cause no one would let me join their group. The teacher told me to get over it and find a group, which led to a group of popular kids tell me that I'm a loser. Fun times in school. My friend once got in trouble for a small sigh after the teacher said we got more homework or more work to do. Can't really remember. She ended up getting sent out of the classroom for it. I checked out a book on African tribes from the library in the 4th grade. I told the teacher about how the book had topless women in it, thinking I was helping. She confiscated the book and had me suspended from school. In 7th grade English class, a classmate looked pretty sad, so I asked her how she was doing. No malicious intent, just wondering what was making her so upset, but she started sobbing. I apologized and moved on. Later that day, I get pulled from a different class by a math teacher that I've never met before, who yelled at me in the hallway making snide remarks about my parents and their parenting capacity. She made me sit in front of the principal's office to wait for the principal to talk to me for 4 hours. Long after the school day has ended, when the principal finally did show up, he had no idea why I was sitting there. Middle school me was too shy to make a fuss about it, but in hindsight I should have made a complaint against her. To this day, The girl that I supposedly bullied has no idea why the math teacher flipped out at me. At my elementary school, they didn't really have any stuff to play with outside, so we would play with sticks, rocks, pine cones, etc. But they didn't like that, so they would send us to sit at the wall for all of recess if we got caught. It was weird. I once got in trouble for reading Stephen King. They were like, "You're reading dark books, it's the reason your behavior is bad." Sorry for my bad English. We had a substitute teacher that everyone hates. I wasn't really paying attention to her explanation that made no sense. After a few minutes she demanded that I had to pay attention to her explanation. I said yes, Captain, because I heard it on SpongeBob that morning. She made me sit outside the class because I was being a spoiled brat according to her. Eventually more people began to say yes, Captain, so they could also get away from her because everyone hated that teacher. Eventually we were sitting outside the class with 5 people and we didn't have to do any work for a few hours because she totally forgot about us. It was a blessing because there were no other consequences aside from getting away from that stupid bee. Edit. This was elementary school. In 11th grade I had gotten pink eye in both eyes. I'd never had it before. Just thought I was having a reaction to my eyeliner or whatever. I was in second period, cooking 101. My teacher kept looking at me funny the entire class. Eventually she asked to talk to me in the hallway. She told me that I needed to go to the nurse's office because I was stoned and she could tell by how fascinated I was with the cooking we were doing. I was so confused and kept trying to tell her I was having some sort of allergic reaction, but she wasn't having it and yelled at me. Told me to grab my things and go now. Pretty much berated me while the whole class could hear and had me so frustrated, embarrassed, I was in tears. Walked into the classroom. Everyone was staring at me in silence. Grabbed my stuff and went to the nurse. One look at me and she confirmed the pink eye. Got to go home and stay home for a few days. I remember my teacher tried to apologize for the incident. Class was super awkward after that. First one. I was waving my fingers to try to get the stuck sticky paper off of it. The principal was passing my class and saw me through the door. He thought I was throwing rocks in a class at the back of my friend's head. I got suspended for that. Second one. My math teacher when I was 14 years old had something against me. At the beginning of each class she would ask me to go into the corridor for 15 minutes. That was her idea of a punishment. She didn't even bother to find a reason. I just had to get out. I got sent to the principal for saying whatever to a supervisor on the school bus. Got detention once for not pledging my allegiance to the Amazon rainforest. No joke. We sang a song and the lyrics were, "We've got to buy back the Amazon. We've got to give the earth a chance to carry on. If it's money they need, let's give them all that they want. We've got to buy back the Amazon." And as a 9-year-old, I thought this seems to be a little much. I didn't sing. And bam. Got detention. I was waiting in the bathroom for a urinal. A kid walked towards me and choke slammed me against the wall. He told the teacher that I was watching him pee and I got 3 days of after school. The stupidest reason someone tried to get me in trouble was for doing the assignment. There was a special needs kid in my programming class, and he had an assistant. She thought I was goofing off on the internet and asked me to stop. I told her I was just working on the project. She didn't believe me, so she went to the teacher, who recognized that I was indeed working on the project. So nothing came of it. The stupidest reason someone succeeded in getting me in trouble was when we had this sub. He insisted on reading the day's instructions very slowly. It was a work day and that was written on the board. But he took a half hour to describe exactly what the different projects we were working on were. The problem was that we all knew what we were supposed to do, so we got started. He got pissed that we weren't listening to him, so he yelled at us and started over with his speech. Eventually he got so pissed that he ate up another half hour ranting about how he is an industry big shot and all the different reasons why he'd fire us if he could. Anyway, I had him as a substitute a couple other times and he was much better tempered, so I assume that was a fluke. Back in high school, had a gym teacher that wished to be any teacher other than gym teacher. Come the driver's ed course. There's some bullet 3-page pamphlet she tells us to read through and summarize. Do just that. She decides my summary of a shortest pamphlet is too close to something she found online. So she makes a big huff about it and I literally have to march over to my English teacher with the summaries, have her evaluate them, and sign off on a form that no, she didn't classify my summary of a bullet short pamphlet being somewhat similar to any other summary of a bullet short pamphlet classified as plagiarism or was any cause to pursue further action. A couple of girls were on the swings and I stood in the middle of them hanging out. I picked up a handful of wood chips and dropped them in front of the girls as they swing by. I did it a couple of times and they laughed and never told me to stop. Get back to class and they told the teacher I was throwing wood chips at them. A big issue in that school. Got in pretty big trouble for that one. For our writing warm-up activity in 8th grade I wrote about a serial killing penguin who had mental health issues and got told to read it aloud. Last day of 7th grade I had a bottom locker in my middle school. It was before school started and I realized that with all my crap taken out of it, my little self could fit in my locker. I then proceed to jam my lock so that no one can lock it in me, and I close it up to the amusement of many faculty and students. The story takes a turn when a friend of mine thought it'd be funny to quickly unjam my locker and then close it with me on the inside. Easy fix, right? Wrong. I didn't know my locker combination because by that point it was all approx numbers and all muscle memory. 2 teachers spent 5+ minutes trying to get me out before someone finally found the sheet with my passcode. I was then surrounded by like 8 teachers mad about it and my guidance counselor took me out of my upset teachers and took me to her office. She proceeded to tell me how it's all just excitement to finish the year and she told me that I should go back home for the day since it was the last day anyways. And she gave me a $20 Starbucks gift card. Best counselor I ever had. TLDR. I got locked in my locker and ended up with a free day from school and $20. I feel like this could be a Tifu post, haha. Corrected a history teacher on what the causes of Germany losing WWII actually were. She was ancient and had all the hate from the war propaganda still in her head. She kicked me out of class and gave me detention. I mentioned that I had read a book. When I was in the 8th grade we had, for one day, a substitute teacher in our Portuguese class. She had the job to make us do a little text about what we thought it would be the best invention ever. I made it about toilets. We delivered the papers 10 minutes after. As she was reading them she would make comments like too much commas or this needs more paragraphs. As soon as she got to mine she stopped speaking. Demanded one kid to go and get the principal. The principal comes, reads the text, also get furious, picks me up, drags me into his office. In there, he and the substitute called my mom, made her do 30 kilometers in a traffic-filled city. When she arrived, she read the text and started laughing, like legit crying and grabbing onto her stomach. They got so mad at my mom for laughing instead of taking it seriously that the principal suspended me for 1 week. Call of Duty and no homework for 1 week thanks to my mom. This entire thread shows that the normal school system is ducked. Another student rubbed his sandwich on my desk in 6th grade. I told him to stop and he started mocking me saying STOP, STOP, STOP. The teacher thought he was telling me to stop so she pulled me into the hallway, asked why I did that. I told her that the other student rubbed the sandwich on my desk but she cut me off and basically wouldn't let me go into class until I admitted that I did it. For touching a lizard chilling on a wall. I used to be in a religious school where people were pretty superstitious, and everyone present, including a teacher and a supervisor, thought what I did would attract the devil to myself or to the school. That's really dumb, but hear me out. I used to talk a lot in class. So one day one of my teachers told me that if I had no interest in her class I ought to get out of the class instead of disturbing my classmates. So I did exactly that. Was suspended the next day for disrespecting a teacher. I wore hard-soled house shows to school. Got detention. We should clean our classroom and naturally there was a lot of trash. We only had one trash can and it was full, so I compressed it because it was 50% air and the teacher got mad at me. Wrote a letter to my parents and moved me on this stupid smiley board to the red side. I can still remember this until now. Getting a question wrong. My teacher would always assign homework from the textbook. so when she would check it she would only see question numbers and answers. Apparently she had given a substitute a page of question numbers and answers to check that we had done our work. I had gotten the first question wrong, and this really confused her. She ignored the fact that I had most of the other questions right. No, I got 6 instead of 10, and I got in trouble for trying to pull one over on her. It's kind of a tie. I got suspended on the last day of middle school for having a green mohawk, and then a few years later, I got in school suspension for saying hi to the principal. Edit, having. A kid came up to me and punched me. I didn't even punch him back or do anything because a teacher saw right away. I was suspended for 2 days for fighting. For me it was stupidest, maybe not for my middle school teacher. I, Japanese, didn't write the date of some paper near a name, wrote in AD. I was called to teacher's room. He hit my cheek and bent my glasses. It was in early 80s. I'm sure it will be a huge problem if it happens now. If not, we are all doomed. One time me and my 4 mates were asked one question in history class. Same question and no one knew the answer. So the teacher left us all to study after school. One of my friends went there and the rest of us went home. Next day history teacher comes to our class in the middle of English lesson and tells us 3 to go to principal's office after that lesson. Turns out she told principal that we are never doing homework and are not studying. We went to a classroom. The main teacher wasn't there. Another teacher looked after us and eventually brought us back to study hall. And then we got in trouble because nobody was watching us. The teacher posted online that we should go to the classroom. Back in middle school, there was a guy that would punch me in the back during lunch. Every day, I approached staff, who did nothing. After a while, I decided to punch back. I got suspended. He got nothing. Putting up a list of names and numbers ended up in administration spending hours looking for the culprits despite having security tapes and the ability to just ask us. I had hiccups. My teacher said I was being disruptive. In my high school, there were 3 kids in my graduating class with the same first name as me. My parents got a call from the school on a Friday afternoon saying that I had gotten into trouble. In reality, it wasn't me. It was one of the other kids with the same name. The school office got us mixed up. My parents didn't buy my story that I didn't do anything. Got grounded for the weekend but incessantly pleaded that I truly had done nothing. They called on Monday to sort it out. Never even got a ducking apology from my parents. Such bullet. In 1st grade, I got sent to the principal's office for punching a boy 3 years older than me. The principal asked me why I did it. He told me girls can't do karate. For accidentally putting a blue-green paint in with the blue paints in art class. I was part of a group of 12-year-old boys who looked at the WWF, or WWE now, website on a library computer, and it had scantily clad women and it was the 90s and we all got detention. I had a teacher arrange a parent-teacher meeting to complain to my mom that I passed all the tests despite not seeming to listen to him when he was teaching. Actually had a problem with me passing exams. My mom was not pleased.